Welcome back to continue our discussion on litigation support in special situations. We are continuing with our cost behavior estimation methods. We discussed the high and low previously. Now we're going to discuss the regression or correlation analysis. Don't freak out, it's statistics, but thankfully there's software that we can use as forensic accountants. So we have the first and easiest type of regression, right? Just a simple linear regression where you have two variables. One is usually a dependent variable and another is an independent variable. So for example, if you're trying to find out the total damages, let's say for sales, that would be your dependent variable, and the independent variables would be a multitude of them. So something that can help us predict that. So we like positive correlations because basically that lets us know that the dependent and the independent variables are positively related. They move in the same direction. Whereas a negative value in our regression pretty much lets us know that now they're moving in opposite directions. So for example, when you have an increase in the interest rates, that may relate to a decrease in your construction costs. So basically what we're trying to do here with this regression line is which value will help us indicate where the points cross, right, in our graph, in our X and Y axis, right? So which ones will kind of help us see all of that. So what that leads us to our coefficient of determination, which pretty much tells us the explanation towards our variance, right? So this is the amount of variance that can be explained by those changes in the volume of the activity that we're measuring. So if we have an 84%, that means 84% of our dependent variable, that total variance, can be explained with the changes in the volume of activity. Now note that there is an association, not a causation, right? Basically what regression tells us is that the two may be associated, but it doesn't necessarily mean that one can prove another's cause. That's what we're trying to tell the jury or the judge in order to award us damages as a forensic accountant. So no estimation is ever 100% accurate, right? So we have a standard error, and that tells us, that basically the variability in the data, right? The more the variability in the data, the less precise our results are and the less we can rely on them. So this is important that we do have to state the confidence intervals. We usually use a 95% confidence. Sometimes if the data isn't really working 90%, I've never really gone below that level. So that's pretty much what we try to do. And we try to put our statistical analysis to the judge or jury in a very simple way so that way they understand what's happening. Because remember, these may not be other accountants that we're talking to. So when we use regression analysis for those damages is basically we have a liability, right? So we realize there was a fraud, we realize there was a liability, and then what we're trying to do is say that if this fraud did not occur, we would not be out this amount of money. So the regression analysis gives us like a foundation. So it's like a fundamental support to basically state these are how these costs are behaving, and because the costs behave this way and due to this fraud, then we have these types of damages. And then it's considered a very solid analytical approach that we use, and basically we present these as experts to the judge or jury and hopefully prove to them that our client has incurred these damages and that they should be awarded for these amount of frauds. So when we use, now that was simple linear regression, now we're going to talk about multiple regression because nothing in business is very simple as that we can think, right? So that would be where we have more than one independent variable. And there's still a regression coefficient of correlation and everything, but now it adds more complexity because we have several variables. So here our results are a bit more complex, and the when and how these allocations are made, it can become muddy. Transfer prices can add to our issue. Remember, if it's a related party, you should transfer prices at cost. Then also we have a lot of accounting policies, right, regarding cost behaviors. We mentioned some semi-variable, semi-fixed, and mixed costs that can kind of ruin our cost behavior analysis. So we just, as forensic accountants, need to know the nature of the operation, and we need to know the every day-to-day business to see and ensure that our analysis coincides with what the company is doing. And that's the hardest part because you might get lost in the data. And that concludes our video lecture on regression and correlation analysis and additional cost behavior estimation method.